The rain poured heavily over Lagos, washing the dusty streets and turning them into muddy pathways. Beneath a rusted bridge, curled up against the cold concrete, lay a young man named Jide. His clothes were torn, his body frail, and his stomach roared in hunger. The last meal he had was 2 days ago, a piece of stale bread he found in a trash bin. Jide wasn't always like this. Once, he had a home, a family, and dreams of becoming something great. But that was before everything fell apart. His parents had died in a horrific accident, leaving him alone with nothing but memories. His father's business partners stole everything, and before he could understand what was happening, he was thrown out onto the streets with no one to help him. Tonight, the cold was worse than ever. His hands trembled, his lips cracked, and his body felt weak. He watched as people walked past him, their umbrellas shielding them from the rain. Some spared him a glance, but most ignored him as if he were invisible. A woman dressed in fine Ankara fabric walked by, sniffing in disgust. She shook her head and muttered loudly, "Useless people like you are a curse to this city," before disappearing into a nearby shop. Jide swallowed the lump in his throat. He had grown used to insults, but somehow, tonight, they hurt more than usual. His eyes burned with unshed tears, but he refused to cry. He had cried enough in the past. Just as he was about to close his eyes and surrender to exhaustion, he heard the sound of screeching tires. A shiny black car stopped a few feet away from him. It was a luxury vehicle, one he had only seen in magazines before his life collapsed. The car door opened, and stepping out was a woman unlike anyone he had ever seen. She was beautiful, but there was a deep sadness in her eyes. Dressed in a flowing gown that hugged her curves, she looked like someone from a different world, a world he no longer belonged to. Jide's heart pounded. Was this another person coming to mock him? Or worse, a police officer sent to chase him away? But then, something unexpected happened. Instead of walking past him, the woman knelt in front of him, staring into his tired eyes. For the first time in a long while, someone looked at him, not with pity or disgust, but with curiosity. "What's your name?" she asked softly. Jide hesitated. No one had asked him that in a long time. "Jide," he mumbled, his voice hoarse from dehydration. She nodded. "I'm Zainab." He didn't know why, but the way she said it made him feel seen. Zainab studied him for a moment before speaking again. "Tell me your story." Jide frowned. Why would someone like her want to know his story? Most rich people threw money at beggars to feel better about themselves, but she was different. She wasn't offering him money. She was offering him something else. "Why?" he asked cautiously. "Because I want to understand," she said. Jide hesitated but then sighed. What did he have to lose? He started talking, slowly at first, but then the words poured out. He told her about his parents, their deaths, how he was betrayed, and how he had lost everything. He told her about the hunger, the cold nights, and the loneliness that wrapped around him like a curse. As he spoke, he noticed something shocking. Tears were streaming down her face. "No one should have to go through that," she whispered. "No one." Jide looked away. He had long accepted his fate. "It doesn't matter," he muttered. "This is my life now." But Zainab's next words changed everything. "No," she said firmly. "This is not your life. Not anymore." Jide blinked at her in confusion. She stood up and turned to her driver, a tall, well-dressed man who had been standing by the car watching the interaction with clear disapproval. "Open the door." The driver frowned. "Madam, this is not safe. We don't even know who he is." I said, "Open the door." Reluctantly, the driver obeyed. Zainab turned back to Jide and extended her hand. "Come with me," she said. "Let me change your life." Jide stared at her hand, frozen. Was this a dream? No one had ever offered him kindness like this. No one had ever cared. Could he trust her? His heart pounded. This was his chance. But was it too good to be true? Jide sat in the back seat of the luxurious black car, his body tense and his mind racing. The soft leather seats felt foreign beneath him. He could still feel the dampness from the rain on his skin, a stark contrast to the warmth inside the vehicle. Every now and then, he stole glances at Zainab, who sat beside him with an unreadable expression. The driver, clearly uncomfortable with the situation, kept looking at Jide through the rearview mirror. His lips were pressed into a thin line, and his grip on the steering wheel was tight. Jide could tell that the man didn't trust him. He wasn't sure he trusted himself either. As they drove through the busy streets of Lagos, Jide watched the world outside the window. He saw people just like him, beggars curled up on sidewalks, street vendors calling out for customers, tired workers hurrying home. It was a world he knew too well, a world he had been trapped in for too long. But now, for the first time in years, he was stepping into a different one. The car slowed as they approached a massive white mansion, surrounded by tall gates and security guards. Jide's heart pounded. What was he doing here? He had never even imagined standing near such a place, let alone entering it. The moment they drove through the gates, Jide noticed the difference. The air seemed cleaner, the road smoother, and the gardens well kept. This was a world of wealth and power. The car stopped in front of the grand entrance. The driver stepped out quickly, opening the door for Zainab but hesitating before looking at Jide. It was clear he didn't want to let him out. "Come," Zainab said, stepping out first. Jide hesitated before stepping onto the smooth marble pavement. Immediately, he could feel eyes on him. The mansion workers stared at him with a mix of curiosity and disgust. The guards, the housemaids, even the gardeners, they all whispered among themselves. "Who is he? Where did she pick this one from? He looks like he hasn't bathed in weeks." Jide swallowed hard, his hands curling into fists. He wasn't welcome here. He knew it. Zainab, however, ignored the stares and took him inside. The interior of the house was even grander. Golden chandeliers, polished floors, and expensive artwork on the walls. Jide felt completely out of place. "This way," Zainab said, leading him upstairs. She opened a door, revealing a large bedroom with a massive bed, a television, and a bathroom attached. "This will be your room," she said. Jide's eyes widened. His room. He had spent months sleeping under bridges, on hard concrete floors, with nothing but the sky above him. And now he had a bed, a real bed. "I'll send someone to get you some clothes and food," Zainab continued. "But first, you need a bath." Jide hesitated, glancing at his own reflection in the mirror. His hair was tangled, his clothes torn, and his skin covered in dirt. He barely recognized himself. Without another word, he walked into the bathroom and turned on the water. The warm water felt like a miracle. He scrubbed himself until the filth of the streets washed away. As he stepped out, he found a fresh set of clothes neatly folded on the bed. Zainab was sitting on a chair near the window when he walked out, now dressed in a clean shirt and trousers. She smiled. "You look different," she said. Jide ran a hand through his damp hair. I feel different, he admitted. A knock on the door interrupted them. A maid entered with a tray of steaming food, jollof rice, fried chicken, plantain, and a bottle of water. The aroma alone made Jide's stomach tighten painfully. Eat, Zainab said. Jide hesitated for only a second before grabbing the plate. He ate like a man who had been starved for years. Halfway through his meal, he felt tears burn his eyes. He wasn't just eating food, he was tasting hope. But that hope was short-lived. The door burst open violently. A tall man in an expensive kaftan stood there, his eyes burning with fury. "Zainab," he thundered, "what is this nonsense?" Jide froze, his spoon hovering midair. Zainab stood up, her expression calm. "Baba, I was going to tell you." Alhaji Bello, her father, cut her off with a sharp wave of his hand. "Tell me what? That you brought a filthy street beggar into my house." His eyes landed on Jide, filled with nothing but disgust. "Do you even know who this boy is?" "He's Jide," Zainab said firmly, "and he's staying here." Alhaji Bello's laughter was harsh and bitter. "You think this is some charity house? You disgrace this family by bringing someone like him in here. My own daughter, bringing in a beggar." Zainab clenched her fists. "Jide is not just a beggar. He's a human being, Baba. He has suffered enough. I won't let you treat him like trash." Alhaji Bello's face darkened. "If you care so much about this street rat, then you have a choice." Jide held his breath. "A choice? Either you throw him out right now, or you leave my house forever." Silence. Zainab's lips trembled. Her entire life had been spent in this house. Everything she had ever known was here. Jide lowered his head. He had never wanted this. He had never wanted to come between Zainab and her family. He opened his mouth to say something, to tell her he would leave. But Zainab spoke first. "Fine," she said, her voice strong and steady. Alhaji Bello blinked. "What?" "I said fine," she repeated. "If that's my choice, then I choose Jide." Jide's breath caught in his throat. Alhaji Bello stared at her, his anger shifting into something else. Shock. "You would throw away everything for a beggar?" he asked in disbelief. Zainab lifted her chin. "No, Baba. I would throw away everything for a person who deserves a second chance." Jide had no words. Alhaji Bello let out a frustrated sigh. "You're making the biggest mistake of your life." But Zainab didn't waver. She turned to Jide and held out her hand again. "Come on," she said. Jide hesitated, then took her hand, and just like that, they walked out of the mansion together. Their new life was nothing like the luxury Zainab had known. She rented a small apartment, a single-room space with a tiny kitchen and bathroom. It was a world apart from her father's mansion, but she never complained. Jide, however, struggled. "I don't deserve this," he said one night, as they sat on the floor, eating bread and akara. Zainab frowned. "Why do you say that?" "I have nothing to give you," Jide whispered. "You gave up everything for me. What if I fail?" Zainab smiled gently. "Then we try again." The next day, she taught him how to speak more confidently, how to dress properly, and how to look people in the eyes when talking. "You have a good mind, Jide," she said. "You just need to find your voice again." Jide worked hard. He read books, practiced speaking, and even tried applying for jobs. But unknown to them, someone was watching. Someone who didn't want Jide to succeed. Jide woke up before dawn, his body sore from the long hours at work. The small apartment was still dark, but he could hear the faint sound of Zainab breathing softly on the mattress beside him. He turned his head, watching her for a moment. She had given up everything for him, yet she never complained. With a deep breath, Jide got up, careful not to wake her. He had been lucky to find a job as a cleaner at a local restaurant. It wasn't much, but it was something. Every morning, he scrubbed floors, washed dishes, and carried heavy bags of food supplies, all while thinking of ways to improve himself. But there was something else Jide was struggling with: his growing feelings for Zainab. He had never met anyone like her. She was kind, selfless, and unbelievably strong. She didn't just save him, she believed in him. And Jide was falling for her. But how could he tell her? He was still nothing. He had no money, no status, nothing to offer her. Zainab deserved someone who could give her the world. So Jide stayed silent, Zainab's biggest challenge. One evening, Jide returned home to find Zainab sitting on the floor, staring at her phone. Her hands trembled as she tried to call someone again and again, but there was no response. "Zainab," Jide asked, stepping closer. "What's wrong?" She lifted her eyes to his, and Jide felt a chill run through him. Her eyes were filled with tears. "My father," she whispered. "He froze my bank accounts." Jide's heart sank. Alhaji Bello had finally cut her off completely. "We have nothing left," she continued, her voice shaking. "The money I had saved is gone." Jide clenched his fists. He had known Alhaji Bello hated him, but to punish his own daughter like this, it was cruel. Zainab wiped her tears quickly. "I'll find a way," she said, forcing a smile. "We'll be fine." But Jide could see the truth. She was scared. That night, as Zainab slept, Jide sat by the window, deep in thought. He had to do something. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small old bracelet. It was the only thing he had left from his mother. A simple gold band worn out with time, but priceless to him. He closed his eyes, remembering his mother's voice. "Jide, this will always remind you of where you come from. Never lose it." But now, he had no choice. Early the next morning, Jide went to a small pawn shop. The shopkeeper examined the bracelet, his expression unimpressed. "This is old," he muttered. "I can only give you a small amount." Jide nodded. He didn't care about the price. He just needed to make sure Zainab didn't go hungry. With the money, Jide bought food, enough to last them a few weeks. When he returned home, he placed the bags in front of Zainab with a smile. She stared at him in shock. "Jide, how did you—" "I got a little extra from work," he lied. Zainab's eyes softened. "You didn't have to do this." Jide smiled. He would do anything for her, even if she never knew the truth. Days later, Jide was walking home from work when he noticed something strange. A black car was parked across the street, its engine running. Something about it felt wrong. Jide quickened his pace, but before he could react, 3 men jumped out of the car and grabbed him. He struggled, but they were too strong. They dragged him into a dark alley and threw him against a wall. One of the men smirked. "You should have stayed away from her." Jide's blood ran cold. "Alhaji Bello." Before Jide could say anything, a fist crashed into his stomach. Pain exploded through him as he doubled over, gasping for air. Another punch landed on his face, sending him to the ground. Kick, punch, pain. Jide could barely move. Blood dripped from his mouth. His vision blurred. "Stay away from Zainab," one of the men growled, "or next time we'll kill you." With that, they left him there, broken, bleeding, and barely breathing. Hours passed before Zainab found him. She had been worried when Jide didn't return home. She had searched the streets, asking everyone if they had seen him. And then she found him, lying on the cold ground, unmoving, her heart shattered. "Jide!" she screamed, rushing to him. She dropped to her knees, tears streaming down her face. She touched his face gently, but he didn't respond. His body was cold. "No, no, no," she whispered, shaking him. "Jide, wake up." She couldn't lose him. Not now, not ever. She held him close, rocking back and forth, crying uncontrollably. Then Jide stirred. Zainab gasped as his eyelids fluttered open. He looked at her, his lips trembling. And then, with the little strength he had left, he whispered something that made her freeze. Something shocking. Something that would change everything. Jide's voice was weak but firm. "Zainab, I was once rich too." Zainab's breath caught. "What do you mean?" Jide swallowed hard. "My father was your father's business partner. We had everything, a good home, wealth, and a happy family. But one day my father was betrayed. He lost everything. The stress broke him, and he didn't survive." Zainab shook her head in disbelief. "No, my father wouldn't do that." Jide's eyes filled with pain. "After his death, no one helped us. My mother begged, but she couldn't handle the suffering. When she died, I had nothing left. I became a nobody." Zainab's heart shattered. Her own father was responsible for Jide's pain. She rushed into the mansion, her heart pounding with rage. Al-Haji Bello sat calmly in his luxurious chair, sipping tea. "Father," she cried, "tell me it's a lie. Did you destroy Jide's family?" Al-Haji Bello sighed. "That boy filled your head with stories." His tone was cold, unapologetic. Zainab's lips trembled. "So it's true." Her father leaned forward, his gaze sharp. His father was weak. Business is war. The strong survive. Tears burned Zainab's eyes. "You ruined his life." Al-Haji Bello scoffed. "And look at you now. I gave you wealth, yet you're living in poverty because of him." Zainab stepped back, her voice firm. "I don't want your wealth if it comes from ruining lives." That night, Jide walked into Al-Haji Bello's study. The older man smirked. "So you came for revenge?" Jide clenched his fists. He had every reason to destroy this man. But then he thought of Zainab. "No," Jide said. "I won't be like you." Al-Haji Bello's smirk faded. For the first time, he looked defeated. Outside, Zainab waited. Jide smiled at her. "It's over." She wiped her tears. "So, what now?" Jide took her hand. We moved forward, together. As love triumphed, Al-Haji Bello sat alone, powerful, but empty. And with that, this part of this journey comes to a breathtaking close. But this is not the end. Far from it. The next part will take you even deeper into a world of adventure, mystery, and shocking twists you never saw coming. What new challenges await? What secrets remain untold? You won't want to miss what happens next. Stay tuned for the next thrilling chapter. It's bigger, bolder, and more suspenseful than ever. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to keep the legend alive. See you in the next adventure. And stay tuned.